Morning, folks. Welcome to Zoning Board of Adjustment for October 10th, 2024. If everybody could take a seat. Thanks. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today, there are speaker request forms over where those folks are standing on the left side of the room. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. The public hearing on item number 1, the approval of the September 5th, 2024 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes, is hereby opened. All right, Karen made the motion to approve those minutes. Vince seconded that. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
So item number 2 is a variance request to allow alternate fencing in lieu of opaque fencing for a mini warehouse storage facility at 1450 Concourse Drive. Property is zoned light industrial district. Future land use is light industrial. The property is accessed by Concourse Drive, which is a minor arterial street on the city's major street plan. So this is the demolition plan that's showing the existing site conditions. This existing building was recently converted from offices to climate-controlled storage. And then this is the proposed site plan. There are 6 new mini warehouse buildings that are currently under construction. The zoning code does require that an opaque fence be provided around the perimeter of this property. And the applicant is planning to install an iron fence along the frontage and then a chain link fence along the remaining property lines in lieu of that opaque fence. So this is a landscaping plan that was submitted. The applicant is planning 100% landscaping buffer along the front property line. So this landscaping buffer is going to screen the facility from the street and justifies approval of the variance to allow an iron fence along the front property line. There does not appear to be any special conditions or circumstances that would justify approval of the variance to allow the chain link fence along the northeast and south property lines. And there doesn't seem to be a justification to remove those screening requirements along those lot lines. So these are just images of the existing trees that are on the property currently. The landscaping buffer is going to consist of large trees that are going to be 40 feet tall. And then this is an image of the iron fence that is being proposed. The iron fence is going to be 6 feet tall, along with the chain link fence along the remainder of the property lines. And then these are elevations of the mini warehouses that are being proposed. These mini warehouses will have 10 doors and they're going to be 11 feet in height. And this is looking north along Concourse Drive. You can see the landscaping buffer that they have there, some of the existing trees that are there currently. This is looking south along that same street. This is looking east along the north property line. That property to the north is a light manufacturing facility. And then this is looking south, or looking east along the south property line. So the properties to the south are office building. So staff is recommending that the variance to allow an iron fence along the frontage be approved with the stipulation that 100% landscaping buffer be provided to screen the mini warehouse facility from the street. And the staff is recommending that the chain link fence along the remaining property lines be denied. So the chain link fence doesn't provide the necessary screening, and there doesn't appear to be any special circumstance or condition that would justify approval. So with that, I'll stand by for any questions, and the applicant's consultant is in the audience as well.
Thank you. Vicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Tanner. That was a great presentation. You know, we really struggle with these. If this were a property that was up against, let's say, an adjacent property that was elevated, and then the fencing didn't make sense, we do bring you recommendations to support those. In this case, that's not the situation. This is a mix of commercial and industrial uses. This isn't just an industrial corridor in and of itself. So noting that there is no physical hardship that would prevent them from providing that fence. And mind you, the fences are twofold. Many of our mini warehousing developments are metal buildings with flatter sloped roofs, and it looks like from the elevations that's what this one's going to be too. And so that opaque fencing does provide that buffer to those other commercial and clean industrial uses. In addition, they provide the inability for anyone to get onto the property. It's for security too. And the police have always supported that we preserve our fencing around these facilities because they're pretty easy targets for those that are out looking to get into some facilities. So on that note, we certainly would love to be able to work more with the applicant than what we've done. But in this situation, other than the cost, we just couldn't see what the limitation was in providing the fencing as required. We do, though, believe that the wrought iron on the front with the existing trees would give it a nice polished look and fit well with the mixed uses of commercial and industrial.
Thank you. I have 2 speaker requests on this. Eric Hikas, do you have a question ahead of that? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tanner, thank you. Sure looks like industrial zoning the way it's applied, the frontage, full screening, that sort of thing. Can we see the zoning map that indicates the current and surrounding land uses, please? I think I'm in full agreement with staff recommendations. I can get on board with the wrought iron fence as well as the buffering. However, I do have some exceptions because of the surrounding being all industrial. The chain link, I think that something a little bit more screening would be appropriate. So I'm going to support staff on this one. Thank you.
All right. I've got 2 speaker requests, and if I lost another speaker request on this item, on the ones for the next, please just raise your hand or let me know. But and as you come up to speak, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if there's anything that repeats another speaker, please just say that you agree with that instead of explain it again. But Erica Olson, if you'd like to come up.
Good morning, Erica Olson, attorney with Lynn Jackson, representing the property owner to the south, Premium Properties LLC. They are concerned about the location of the fencing and the failure to screen. There are concerns about, I've not had a chance to review the overall PUD for this, and my clients think that there are some easements that or common access areas within this area that may be blocked by this fencing. But in addition, asking for the variance to the chain link, they feel doesn't fit within the area, but in addition have concerns about whether the location of the fencing is going to be blocking some common access that was originally planned for in that PUD and in the covenants for this industrial park. So I would ask that the matter be continued until some more information can be sort of pulled out from that.
Okay. Thank you. Cale McNabo.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Thank you for inviting us to speak today. My name is Cale McNabo. I'm with Long Branch Civil Engineering. I represent the petitioner in this matter, Corey Weisbeck. Yes, Mr. Weisbeck has got a piece of property which is currently entirely zoned light industrial, and I believe that we could, with regards to the previous speaker and the comment on the PUD, this is not in a PUD, it's zoned light industrial. So what we see, though, is the surrounding zoning is light industrial, and to alleviate any confusion, we completely appreciate the staff's position on the wrought iron fence frontage. Since there is a 100% landscape buffer, it's going to be aesthetically pleasing, improve the look of the site. The perimeter fencing, south, north, and east side that we discussed, the intention is to put up the chain link fence, but not install the opaque slats that go in the chain link fence. For security reasons, the owner sees the need for installing the chain link to limit access overland into the facility. But the biggest item that he's got is from his standpoint, he believes that provides better security when you can see through to the units versus, the slats providing a barrier to the passerbys or people doing nefarious activities within the facility itself. So break-ins, those sorts of things. So while there's no opaque screening on the frontage of the property, the three sides, south, north, and east side, would have a full chain link fence, but would not have the opaque privacy slats installed within the chain link fence. So that's the intention of it. With regards to the zoning, yeah, it's entirely light industrial, so there's no planned development on this property. And the fence will exist within the boundary of the property. And if you have any additional questions, I guess I'd be happy to answer them, but just bear in mind that each of the units is individually locked, so, for security purposes. And it's just the idea that you can see within the fence if anybody's doing nefarious activities within the facility. So, thank you.
Thank you. Vicky, could I ask you or Tanner to comment on the PUD?
Yes, I had a couple comments.
Okay.
It is zone light industrial, is not in a planned development. If it was in a planned development, you would not be seeing the variance, you would be seeing a major amendment to the planned development.
Gotcha.
And if I might,
Yeah.
so we have many warehousing units or other uses that require a screening fence. Wherever there is an approach or a secured access point, then that fencing can be void from that area and potentially just gated. So if there is additional conversation between this property owner and the adjacent property owner, and it's identified that there are some access points through this property, we would work with them so that the actual fence itself would be eliminated from that access point through this property and potentially just gated. So I don't know if we need to delay this today just so that we can have that conversation. We're still a ways from issuing a building permit. Secondly, we have tried to work with others on screening where they're providing a fence, but it's not opaque, and they're meeting the security requirement, or people just can't walk in. In some of those instances, though, you as the zoning board, or if you're seated as the planning commission reviewing it through a plan development, you've looked at the exterior elevations of the storage units that are facing those adjacent properties to see what elements could be added so that they just don't look like metal structures with a flat or sloped roof. That's what you've done in the past.
One question, and I think I know the answer, but there was a mention from the one speaker about covenants, and as planning commissioner, we don't, or zoning board of adjustment, sorry, we do not get into review of covenants or take any sort of position on covenants between neighboring properties, correct?
That is correct. And if there's a utility easement or a drainage easement, potentially, just speaking to the utility easement, you can put a fence through that easement. If the utility then needs to access their easement, they can take your fence down and it's at your expense to put it back. Usually they knock on the door and work with you to get through it, but that's the risk that we all take. If it's an access easement and it's between the two property owners, that too becomes civil in nature and something that they need to work out.
I say that just as a suggestion that maybe the two speakers want to have a conversation since they're both at the meeting, but after and in the hallway, so the meeting is not disrupted. Any questions or comments from the commission? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is more a question for Kale. Can you cite crime prevention through environmental design? Do you have any criteria basing the chain link fence that could be seen through? I don't see the external streets or alleyways that could be patrolled to be able to see into the facility. Tell me a little bit more. Is there something we're missing?
Yeah, no, I essentially am just here representing the owner's desire to approve, or to pursued this variance. I didn't bring any crime statistics with me or have done any independent research on the validity of that subject.
There's a handy reference, crime prevention through environmental design, that sometimes we use in these matters, that sheds a little light on the ability to patrol and see into the facility. So,
Yep, understood.
okay, thank you. Thanks, Cale.
Haven?
That might have answered the question I had. Apparently, the request to eliminate the slats is for purpose of being able to see in for security purposes. But I guess the other storage units around town have complied with this requirement, I assume, that does provide the opaque exterior fence. Would that be right?
Vicki?
Mr. Chair, that's a great comment, Haven. We have some that are legal nonconforming that don't have the fencing. We have had variances and amendments through plan developments where you as a team have gone with a more decorative fencing and landscaping. And again, it really lends itself to the aesthetics of it. You saw the elevation of the mini warehousing units. There are going to be 6 of them on the property, metal structures. They're very bland in nature compared to some of the other development in the neighborhood. So for the most part, any mini warehousing unit that has come in over the last 15 or so years, they do provide that opaque screening fence, or they're before you for a variance or an exception through the plan development process. And today's direction that we've given you is just kind of aligning with what you've done in the past.
And I originally had assumed that they were just trying to save some money by not providing the slatted chain link fencing, but this is kind of a little different issue. But so I guess I would have to say I after the comments that I would probably support the staff's recommendation as to the 2 questions involved with this application. Excuse me. One other question. There was a photo of the south side and with a gravel access. Is that would that be one of the requirements that they hard surface that particular portion that's in this photo?
Yeah, so all vehicle circulation is going to be hard surface. So I believe they are planning to pave this site, so that it's under construction right now.
Just kind of a follow-up for me on the rules and regulations. So mini storage qualifies the same as like a contractor storage yard. Is it defined similar, or is it a separate definition?
Separate definition.
Okay, all right. Zoning Board of Adjustment is tough. I mean, we're given the rules. I don't see the need to screen buildings. I get the need to screen, outdoor yards where construction materials or otherwise piles up. But the nature of mini storage is stuff goes in a building. I mean, so there's not going to be debris left around the site. That's kind of my struggle, but I also don't know that there's a call to overrule the city's regulations on this.
And Mr. Chair, you make an excellent comment. When you look at the variance and the criteria that must be applied by state law in order to grant it, it's hard to find one that will allow you to support this. For a bigger discussion down the road, the comments that you just made, we can start taking a look at that to see what the screening requirements should be for storage versus structures, to determine if there could be some amendments in the future.
I'd appreciate that. I mean, I'll provide too much information here, but if this were a planned development, I would support no slats in the fence. But it's not. It's a conditional use, so, it's a variance in zoning board, and that's a different decision, unfortunately. Brooke? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So not to be preemptive, but I would make a motion to approve the variance request for the decorative iron fence and deny the request for the chain link as presented by staff.
I'll second.
All right, Brooke made the motion, Vince seconded that motion. Do we need any further details on the motion, or are you on the, do we need to add a reason for the variance on the front?
So I think that the variance on the front end should be that it's the minimum adjustment necessary. And that should, with the landscaping, that should get us what we need to uphold that variance.
Does that work for you, Brooke?
And I concur.
Okay. All right, any discussion on the motion to approve the variance for the decorative fence along the street frontage and deny the variance for the not having slats in the chain link fence on the other sides of the property? Then all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That's our last agenda item on zoning board of adjustment. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All right, Karen seconded that motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We will now commence the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for October 10th, 2024. Again, if any other member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today, please grab a speaker request towards the left side of the room and fill it out and hand it to the staff seated over there. Item number 1 has been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Do we want to remove the meeting minutes? Anybody? All right. I'd look for a motion to approve the September 26, 2024 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
All right, Vince made the motion. And Eric seconded that motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair, Commission. Item number 2 is a conditional use permit. Again, Jessica Olson, current planning. Item number 2 is a conditional use permit, number 19, for a group home to allow for a respite care center or facility. So the proposed respite care facility would be at 4080 Tower Road, as you can see here on this map. This was formerly used as a 32-room hotel, formerly known as Big Sky Lodge. So the proposed program is a partnership between South Dakota Department of Health, which has provided the seed money, Monument Health, which will provide patients in need of care, City of Rapid City Fire Department, community health workers who are going to be providing transportation and other services, and the applicant, which is Cornerstone Rescue Mission, who will be running the facility. So it'll be a respite bed program to temporarily house homeless patients who are not sick enough to stay in the hospital but are not well enough to be released either to the mission or some other living situation. The subject property was used in 2020 to house similar population recovering from COVID. And so if you have any questions about the operations of that, the applicant is here to answer those as well. So the building has legal nonconforming status related to the area regulations, so the setbacks, bulk standards, those sorts of things, the coverage requirements, and the landscaping requirements. It does have adequate landscaping as well. So I'll just note that. Since it is a change of use, the current parking requirements must be met, so I'll cover that later. As well as fire and building codes, those will trigger at building permit, so just be aware of that. I'll go into a little bit more detail about the zoning requirements and the operational plans in a few slides when we get to that site plan. So now we'll go over the zoning. It is zoned general commercial. Group homes are conditional use in general commercial zone. That's why we're here today. The surrounding zoning to the west there is Park Forest. That Park Forest does not allow group homes, so just note that. To the south is Low Density Residential 1, which also does allow group homes. And then to the east there is Mount Rushmore Road. There's about 300 feet of right-of-way. On the other side there is more general commercial. So the future land use is mixed-use commercial, which is in line with the zoning, which is in line with the use as well. So we are off Tower Road. We're just north of where Mount Rushmore Road and Enchantment Road meet. And then if you go to the north, it kind of splits into Skyline Drive and Tower Road, leading over to Mount Rushmore Road. So we're on a collector street per the major street plan, and then connecting to some other arterials and other meeting points. So you can kind of see the type of neighborhood. There's some large lots. Most of those are single-family residential. Here's the aerial, so you could kind of see the surrounding neighborhood as well. So the applicant's operation plan proposes to use up to 29 of the 32 rooms for patients that will be released from the hospital into the respite program. The other 3 rooms would be used by staff for operational needs. One of those is allowed to be a manager's residence. Prior to acceptance into the program, the patients would be screened to ensure they're not on the sex offender registry. A doctor from Monument Help will develop a case plan, care plan, and they'll set an actual designated discharge date. They don't expect them to be at the facility for more than a couple weeks, so take note of that. The patient will be transported by, again, the Rapid City Fire Department community health workers from the hospital to the respite care facility. They'll also be providing any transportation once they're on the site as well during that patient's stay. They're going to be using passenger vehicles, so think of minivan, sedan, other type of just mid-range passenger vehicle that anybody would drive. The program manager from Cornerstone will check in the patients. They'll assign rooms, provide food and housekeeping services. Cornerstone will also be the ones that are responsible for property maintenance and 24-hour security services. So everything I just said, all the number of rooms, patients, staff use of the rooms, patient screening, transportation, doctor's care plan, discharge date, those are all included as stipulations in the recommendation of approval for this. So through this, the applicant, and I'll just take a second to note, they did have an application 24 UR 15 previously that was withdrawn. There were a number of comments from the community with concerns, and so the applicant worked to attempt to address some of those. And so I'll go through a number of concessions that were made in order to continue with the project, and the stipulations are in the report because of that. Typically, we don't always stipulate this specifically, but that is the reason that I'll go through the reasoning and what is actually being stipulated with the recommendation of approval. So next, the group home does not have a specified parking rate. So we're getting into the parking, which is determined by the director. So we looked at the anticipated peak use on the property, how many employees, patients, that sort of a thing. So the applicant has indicated that there would be up to 5 employees on site maximum. Up to 29 rooms would be occupied by patients, but the patients likely will not have their own vehicle. And then visitors would be limited to 1 patient at a time, up to 2 visitors at a time. So we landed on about a 25 parking space rate for the whole facility based on that information. The applicant is proposing 26 spaces, which triggers 2 ADA spaces as well, which are provided on the site plan, 1 on each side of the building, and one of them is van accessible. So they are meeting the parking standards as proposed. Give me a second here. So the parking requirement is included as a stipulation of approval. For privacy and security, the applicant has proposed to install an opaque screening fence along the north property line. So we're talking over here. And that's the fencing that you see at the bottom on the left-hand side of the screen. There is an existing, very similar fence on the south side of the property. That is required because it is the LDR1 zone on that side. The north side is general commercial, so they're not required to put the fence on that side of the property. So just take note of that. It is existing on the side that is required.
just for the purposes, they're adjacent to a single-family residences on each side, and so they're just, for politeness, putting screening fences on either side of that. And I'll show you some pictures once we get over there. So in order to address community concerns that persons outside the respite program may try to enter the facility or loiter around the facility, one of the things that the applicant has proposed in order to mitigate that is putting a wrought iron style fence. And this was not part of the original proposal, but this was something that they added in order to address some of the concerns. So a wrought iron style see-through fence, security type fencing along that west property line here. It needs to be at least 25 feet back to meet the setback requirements. That's what's shown on the site plan here. And then including a code-controlled sliding gate, sliding because of snow. And so the people that would have access to that, namely the employees and any services like emergency services would have access, as well as trash pickup and things like that. So any necessary services that would need that code would have it, as well as the staff. And that proposed fencing is included as a stipulation of approval. So additionally, to address concerns about people coming and going on site, visitation is going to be limited. Appointment only, 24 hours in advance. Cornerstone will schedule visitation between the hours of 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. and limit visitation to one patient at a time so that they can monitor it, and 2 visitors at a time so there's not an abundance of people on the site. And it will be held in a common area so they can provide that monitoring by staff in earshot. During visits, there will be at least 2 staff on site as well, so that one can cater to the needs of the other patients on site, and one can stay with the visitors and the patient during that time. Visitors will not be permitted in individual rooms and will not be permitted to stay overnight. Those parameters are included as a stipulation of approval. For added security, they've also proposed to install cameras and have staff on site 24 hours to 24/7 basically to monitor for security. So those security measures are also included as a stipulation of approval. There will be an outdoor common area. It's in existence already. There was an outdoor common area in the rear of the facility. You can kind of see there's some split rail fencing around it with some tables and chairs. I'll show you a picture once we get there. That will be the outdoor area for the patients, so they'll be behind the building, kind of out of view, and hopefully that mitigates some visibility as well as noise. And then there is an existing open space on the front that will likely be used by staff. Oops, sorry, we're not there yet. So that outdoor common area for patients, the stipulation of approval as well, that is provided, and that's the location of it. So the existing building was built in 1977. Since the previous use was a hotel and the proposed use is a group home, it does trigger the change of occupancy or change of use for occupancy. So for that change of use, a building permit must be obtained prior to occupancy. And that will trigger a full review of the building. So a design professional will need to go through the current codes versus how the building is built and propose any upgrades to it. That includes ADA accessibility, fire suppression, and alarm system will be required for this use. And those are, that's prior to occupancy, and those are all listed as stipulations of approval as well. So the applicant has proposed to remove all signage. There's a billboard that faces Mount Rushmore Road, a pretty large pole sign on the eastern, southern kind of corner of the property. There was a entrance sign as well. I've noted that that had been removed already. So they're going to be removing all of the signage just to avoid people being confused and trying to go to the site as well. It'll keep it more private. And so there's also no plans to install any other signage because they don't need to advertise the use since it will be, they're basically contracting with Monument to have the patients go there, so it'll be kind of a closed system. So that removal of all signs is included as a stipulation of approval that helps reduce visual clutter. This is also on Mount Rushmore Road is an entrance corridor per the comprehensive plan, so that's kind of in line with trying to reduce that visual clutter along the entrance corridor. So that is kind of a rundown of what's in the report and what the stipulations of approval are. Now I'll get to just orienting you to the site so that you can understand what it'll look like, what's going on there. There is quite a bit of topography on this site. It's very vegetated, that sort of a thing. So this is looking at the building. So we're looking east from Tower Road. You can note that they also met their public notice obligations with the sign there. This is where the wrought iron style fencing would go along this, basically 25 feet back from the property line here. I would assume some of that split rail will go, but the split rail behind where it's fencing off the open space area would remain. This is same area, but we're looking at the actual vehicle entrance onto the site. So a little bit of a slope there. That's where the gate would go. So this is looking south at the building. This is where the parking area would be restriped to meet the parking requirements. And there is an office here, the part of the building that's sticking out, that is the front office as well. And then there's all of the rooms have their own individual entry. It's not a main entry with a hallway. So this is the side of the property I mentioned where they would be installing an opaque fence. The property line is pretty much behind this shed here to give you an idea. So it'll be probably about where this is. So there will be an opaque wood fence along that property line. This is the vehicle access that goes to the rear of the building. We're looking east. Note that the gravel area is also part of the property. This is as if we just went straight on that vehicle access to where the split rail fencing is and are looking down to show there is a natural buffer on the rear of the property on the east side, which is why there is not any other privacy fencing or security fencing that's proposed on that side of the property. You can also see the billboard here that will be removed. This is the rear of the property, so we are on the east side looking south. Again, the parking area would be striped to meet the parking requirements. You can kind of see that outdoor common space with some nice views over there. That's the Big Sky Lodge sign that will be removed as well. And this just gives you an idea of what the outside of the rooms look like. Here we are looking, northeast-ish, again at that common area. I think they do have some plans to spruce this up a bit as well, and they're potentially have some covered area in the future. So this is looking down from where that outdoor area is, again, to see how steep that hill is, of why they're not proposing fencing on this side of the property beyond what the existing split rail fence. And this is looking south. You can see that RV park across Mount Rushmore Road there. This is on the south side, looking at that existing opaque fencing adjacent to the single-family residence. That's their garage, I believe, over here. You can also kind of see where the trash pickup would be. It's been there since the hotel's been there, and there's no proposed change to the trash area. This is looking south at that single-family residence. So similar opaque fencing on the other side. This is that open space area on the front. So we're on the west side of the property looking west, where staff may congregate during break times. This is just a close-up of what the entrance to the rooms look like. They do each have their own individual lighting that stays on when it's dark outside. And this is the office area entrance. And then we're looking from the office toward Tower Road. So this is about northwest. Again, the gate would be here connecting to the opaque fencing on the other side with some other wrought iron fencing across, or similar style see-through fencing. So now we're going to be looking around the neighborhood so you can kind of see what it looks like surrounding this area. This is on Tower Road looking north toward where it splits into Skyline Drive and Tower Road. We'll go up there in a second. We're looking west now, directly west at where that single family property was. One of the larger lots, heavily treed. Looking south on Tower Road. This is Skyline Ranch Road, I believe, down here. And there is quite a bit of elevation difference too between the property and the roadway. So now we're kind of up closer to where the Skyline Drive split is, looking south. So you can kind of see that Big Sky Lodge sign that will be removed. The fencing will be about here, so the building actually will be pretty screened at this point. So we're looking south on Tower Road. North from that spot, so that's where the split to Skyline is. So you can kind of tell where the proximity of those roads are. This is on the south side, so we're looking back north at this point. That's that single-family residence. And the sign will be gone, so there wouldn't be a lot of visibility from this angle. Now we are out on Mount Rushmore Road looking west. This is the cemetery over here, that same single-family house we were just looking at, that Big Sky Lodge sign that will be removed. So that, not a lot of visibility from there. Again, this is that pretty steep hill. This is from where that RV park is on the other side of Mount Rushmore Road, looking west. Quite a bit of trees. That's the billboard that will be removed as well. Just showing the slopes that lead up to that property. Again, removal of that sign. We're looking southwest at this point. Again, the signage would be removed. That split rail fencing would be maintained. So that is all I have to present. Staff is, let me get my notes here. So the applicant has provided a number of measures to mitigate potential negative impacts resulting from the proposed use. Based on the proposed operations plan and site plan with all of the stipulations that have been listed in the report, staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit to allow the group home for respite care with those stipulations noted at the end of the report. And as stipulated, the approval would allow the group home with the mitigation measures agreed upon, and any expansion or change to that operational plan or site plan would require a major amendment. So it would come back to the Planning Commission at that point in time. And per the last stipulation of approval, I'll just note, in the event that these standards and the stipulations outlined are not met or maintained, the conditional use permit may be revoked at that point in time. So the applicant is in the audience and a number of members of the partner organizations, and I am available to stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki?
Mr. Chair, these are always hard discussions. Well, I think everyone can agree that our homeless individuals do need care as they're coming out of a hospital if they're not able to go back to a homeless situation. The issue is always location. And it's important that you be reminded, this is a conditional use permit. There are criteria that have been spelled out very closely in the report. And so as you're listening to the comments today and you're making your decisions, fall back on the criteria. Is that criteria being met? Is this a vegetated site? Did they do what they needed to ensure that there's no pedestrian activity on the street? Is it keeping in line with the character of the neighborhood? Again, hard questions, but just remind you that as you've heard the presentation, I'm sure the applicants will speak too, but go back to those stipulations or that criteria that needs to be met to determine if this is the right location for the use.
All right. We do have a number of speaker requests on this item. I'm going to ask the same thing, that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And if you feel the need to echo a previous speaker, just say that you agree with them. We don't need to expound upon the same points repeatedly. With that, I'll start with Maren Gall. And if I mispronounce anyone's name, I apologize in advance. But once you're up at the microphone, identify yourself for our records. Thank you.
Hi. I don't know which one. I'm Maren Gall. I'm a mother of 3 young children, and we live in the neighborhood. It's residential, and the character of the neighborhood has gotten scarier the longer I've lived there for the last 3 or so years. Last night we had 2 shootings going on. In the last 2 weeks, we had 2 more shootings. About a year ago, I asked the police if they could possibly drive through once a night just to look at the cars that are parked on the side of the road doing God knows what at all hours, early in the morning, late at night. They said they did not have enough staff and resources to do that. So the character is already dangerous and may change for the worse. That parking lot you saw, there are always people parked there. Surprised there wasn't one in the photo. I don't believe that this belongs in a residential neighborhood. And even though the zoning is all over the place, it is residential. People are out trying to walk safely. Sometimes they are shot by air gun scenarios from cars, and police have been notified and nothing has happened. And I don't feel that having a group home that may change in the future, and I know they have to come back for new conditions to be met, I don't feel this is the right direction for us to feel safe, and a lot of us are here to speak on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerald Butts.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Gerald Butts. I'm a retired physician. Worked at Regional Hospital for a long time. I worked a lot with Dr. Mark Harlow, who is, I know, partially responsible for some of these ideas. He always had patient care number one in his mind and always was forward-looking for the community. This is a definite need. We definitely need such a facility, such a group home. But it ends up being the wrong place. As was stated just recently, this is a residential community, and this changes the whole atmosphere of that community. The hospital is trying to develop and has developed a major medical center here in western South Dakota that's excellent, it's first rate. And part of that is by maintaining all the medical care on the main campus. And that should still be maintained. We're looking at the need for medical students, lab personnel, nurses, other people to go out there. We have a limited gate in this proposal. We have a lot of people who need to go out there and observe or look at these patients. And this is inadequate site plan and inadequate development idea for that. The outside entryway for each room I find concerning because that allows for individual people to leave, but it does not have any control for inside staff or inside staff to observe any problems in that room with that patient. Other locations might be a lot better. The hospital campus. I've been out taking some photos in the hospital campus. I know they feel like they are fully developed, but there's a lot of vacant areas on the hospital campus. And I can pass some photos around if that would be acceptable, so you can take a look at that. There's a lot of vacant land in areas that might be developed. Possibly the rehab campus, where the new rehab hospital is. There's vacant land there as well, and this is a rehab type facility. It's a group home. They're going to this step-down care to try and get better before they go home. And this is not that location. The rehab campus, possibly the ortho pain center campus, those three areas would be possibilities. But again, to have medical students, lab personnel, nurses, all other associated healthcare individuals see these people, which need to be done on a periodic basis, does not happen in this proposed facility. We have a world-class medical center here, and that needs to be maintained. It seems like it's a cost saving, but it's not a cost saving. If you look at transportation costs, they will only increase. If it's on a medical campus, you just go from main house to there, the nurses can go, you have
Mr.
control.
Butts, I'm sorry.
It's
If you
much
could,
better.
If you could wrap it up.
I will wrap it up.
Yeah. Thank you.
That really sums up my comments, but thank you very much.
Thank you. John Butts.
Hi, I'm John Butts. Thank you for your time. I would like to echo just the last couple of comments. I mean, I think there's a lot of technical discussions on this. There's a lot of emotional discussions on this. But I do think it falls back onto, I apologize, what, Vicky? Yes, what Vicky said initially. Go back to the overall thought. Does this kind of fit the scenario that we're looking for, or is there potentially a better alternative that we can look at? But otherwise, I think multiple statements have been made and will be made that echo my feelings on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just going on this. Kirsten Butts? Kristen?
Hello, everyone. So, yes, I'm Kirsten, and I am a resident of the area. I also have 3 young children, and I also practice as a physician who takes care of this patient population. So I have a lot of feelings and emotions for them. I take care of them regularly. I talk with them through their stresses, their traumas, and I do think that this is a very needed thing for our community. I think that you need to consider, though, what your location is. This is a residential area. We live here. I need to feel safe when I go home from work. I put a lot of effort into work to take care of them. And not that there's things that aren't going to be safe, but there are things right now that aren't helping us feel safe. As I've said before, there was things in our neighborhood last night that really affected my safety and the safety of my children, and they were very upset. I don't think that doing something that could potentially increase that is the right place for this. The law enforcement does not have the capacity to come up to our neighborhood regularly. They have told us that over and over. We have called and asked, and they just don't have it. So you need to put this in a place where there is regular law enforcement availability within a very short time. And that, I think, is the bottom line here, is that we need to consider where you put this, and that if there were anyone out here that this was also going to be in their neighborhood or their backyard, they would also probably have similar sentiments. Thank you.
Thank you. John Palmer?
Thank you, everyone, for having me. Dr. Harlow, Dr. Tamang, thank you for being here. I think we need to recognize your efforts for what you've done. Dr. Harlow, at Oyate, I've seen just an incredible improvement in care since you've been there, and it's much, much welcomed. Dr. Tamang, what you're doing for addiction for the city has been unbelievable, and I think we all need to partner to continue to support your works and what both of you have done for our city, for our community, more importantly, for our patients. I'm a physician as well. Been to the hospital already at 4:30 this morning, taking care of the very same patients that will be going to this place. This location is not appropriate for these individuals with the health care provided that we see every day with the issues that they have. This is not as simple as you're going to come here, you're going to respite, and you're going to go home. These patients have medical complications that will require oftentimes readmission back to the hospital. And as a provider who is very involved with my patients, I will, in good faith, want somebody being discharged to a facility, that particular building. I think we have an opportunity as a community, though, where we can work together, where we can see, look, we have an issue, we need to solve this, what is going to be best for all parties involved. I think putting this in this location is a absolutely terrible idea. And I think from the standpoint of all of the brains and all of the resources that we have, there's a much better solution. And I'll yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Hemming?
Yes, I'm Richard Hemming, a resident in the area. For the last 14 years, or for 14 years, I've served as a director on the board of Serenity Homes, a nonprofit addiction recovery organization that provides housing to recovering men and women in residential areas. I echo what has just been said and want to emphasize we're dealing with individuals, people we love and care for, who have very difficult challenges in their life with addiction, with mental illness, that are not controllable by fences, by common areas, by some of the physical conditions that have been cited earlier that we appreciate. But we're dealing with a population that really needs intensive, regular, daily, hands-on care. And that is not being provided. When I was involved as a director, it was absolutely essential that we understand and manage the laws, the regulations, the codes that pertain to housing a group home and housing, especially with addiction, people recovering from addiction. I don't see that addressed in this application at all. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I think the proposed use of having our fire department be providing transportation back and forth, I don't believe that that is consistent with city regulations or codes, and may be a violation of how they're using funds. I just leave these with you and echo that which has been said, and I strongly recommend that you decline this application.
Thank you. Nancy Hemming?
Good morning, and thank you for listening to my comments. The two entrances to the rooms themselves, the bathrooms in the rooms, and any common areas were not constructed for use as a medical facility. If there are only a few people watching over 28 people, I worry about security and safety. If I were staying there, I would be concerned about how the men are separated from the women in this facility. I worry about people feeling better after a few days and leaving. There aren't sidewalks in the area. And there isn't lighting at night. There are no bus services. And if sick clients leave on their own, I would worry for their safety walking on the roads and in our neighborhoods. As much as visitation may be restricted, it goes without saying that utilization of this facility as proposed would increase pedestrian traffic along Tower Road. There are safety issues that have not been addressed that justify rejecting this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Marnie Gould?
Good morning. I'm here just to add my support to my neighborhood. I live on Skyline Ranch Road. Excuse me. My name is Marnie Gould. I am here from the Skyline Ranch Road neighborhood to emphasize that virtually everyone I've spoken with in my neighborhood is not in favor of the proposed use of the lodge on Tower Road for a medical respite facility. We're concerned about safety issues, health issues, whether the property will truly support a healthy environment for people recovering. And I just ask you to consider that another location could be a better property for this purpose. My husband wrote a letter when it was first being evaluated at a former meeting. I understand that letter hasn't been forwarded to you, but he was not able to be here this morning, so I came to represent our family and neighbors that I know are not in town and able to speak for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Williams?
Good morning, and thank you for having this meeting and asking for our input. As you can see, we have a number of family members that are, and residential members that are part of our community on Skyline Drive. I live a mile and a half from this location, and I walk a mile and a half up to the cemetery and gather my mail and walk back every day. This is just an inappropriate use for this facility. This was built in the 1950s, unlike the 1977. It was turned into a hotel in the 1970s, and it was then grandfathered with all of the non-upgrades. The thing that really bothers me is that, number one, your initial response or beginning of this project, you contacted people within 250 feet? Wasn't that correct? And how many residents was that? 3. Okay. And you have, if anybody that is one of the residents on Skyline, could you just raise your hand? Okay. We have a significant portion of people here that want to talk to you about these issues. Looks like I have a minute and a half, and my original question was, in the collaboration for for this issue, or to buy this property, Cornerstone Mission, Monument Health, the South Dakota Department of Health, and let's see, the city, what is it? City of Rapid City, City Fire Department, Community Health Workers, which I'd never heard of before this. All are working together to get it placed in a position, place this facility in a position to accept people who have only one door of escape. There's only 2 ways out of this facility, and there's a solid wall that separates these rooms from the other side. Those walls, I've been told, were constructed with 1/2-inch sheetrock. My garage has 5/8-inch sheetrock. So if there's an accidental fire, this puts every patient in this facility at risk. Not only that, the wind has a tendency to blow on Skyline Drive. We've had significant blizzards that have left 10 to 20-foot drifts. I can't imagine if I was in a detox or a position as an addict, that now I can't get my drugs. I can't, because no one can get to me. Would you then plow that entire road all the way down to the hospital? So if I had been a patient, I would wonder one thing, and that thing is, who is going to be the ultimate responsible party for this issue? Is it going to be Cornerstone Mission? Will it be Monument Health? Will it be South Dakota Department of Health? Or will it be the Rapid City Fire Department Community Health Workers? Will they be taking responsibility for me? I don't think so, and I'd love to have an answer to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Steve Massapost? Hang on one sec. Got it now. Go for it.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the committee. My name's Steve Massapust. I'm a retired family doctor in Rapid City for over 40 years, and my wife was born here and has lived within a several-mile radius of this place for her entire life. I don't think this should be approved because I think it will be detrimental not only to the neighborhood, but to Rapid City in its entirety, because it doesn't conform with the comprehensive plan in several key areas. Can you put the application on the screen?
Oh, you want me to grab mine?
Yeah. The planning committee is well aware of how the comprehensive plan interacts with their decisions. but for those of you in the audience that may not be aware of that, it's required by law. Our current plan was established in 2014, and it is used regularly for approval of applications. It has 7 core values, and these are listed on the application and how this application conforms with all of them. Number 2, a vibrant, livable community, has some comments, and I'm going to speak to that. And economic stability and growth has not applicable. For economic stability and growth, our community has a diverse economic base, and it's trying to get high-wage jobs that provide an alternative to the tourism, military, and service-based industries that are prevalent here. Part of the plan for the city is to attract a skilled workforce and ensuring that workforce quality and attainable housing options. A subset of that is to attract medical workers. And again, trying to ensure access to attainable and high-quality housing options and support vibrant neighborhoods and amenities. I think if someone were coming here, a professional, and we're looking in the neighborhoods in this area, if they saw an outdated motel with a security fence around it, with a locked gate, security vehicles there for the staff and for security, and homeless people sitting outside in a common area, that would be discouraging. Under a vibrant, livable community, there's much attention to gateways and entrance corridors to the city. They feel that gateway and entrance corridors in their character and appearance shape the first impression visitors have of the city.
Mr. Massapus, I'm sorry, we lost the clock, but you're up against the 3-minute. If you could summarize, I'd appreciate it.
So the plan is as Rapid City grows, care should be taken to make sure that gateways and entrance corridors impart a positive image. I think Highway 16 and Tower Road are entrance corridors, and I think to see a lot of traffic with homeless people in the area would be detrimental. Thank you.
Thank you. Betsy Sage.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Betsy Sage, and I live along Pevins Parkway, which is between Tower Road and Skyline Drive. It's become kind of a cut across for a lot of riffraff that other people have spoke about. And I'd like to speak today as a mom of 4 children that live in this neighborhood. I've lived there for 12 years, and what you are looking at today is evaluating whether this should be given consideration for a permit. Some of those items would be proposed pedestrian and vehicular access, circulation and parking, and existing traffic generated by the proposed use. What I would like to say is that this facility does not belong in a residential neighborhood surrounded by single-family residences served without public transit. The application should be denied. I have walked this neighborhood for 12 years, part of the reason why I live there. The safety of the neighborhood has already been compromised, but as it stands, I do not go down Tower Road anymore because the traffic has increased and the infrastructure is not there. Once you continue up Tower Road to where this proposed facility is, where foot traffic will definitely be increased, the sidewalk ends, guardrails continue as far as the eye can see to a downhill steep road. I've never, ever walked that. I stop there and I turn around because it is not safe. You are going to have moms and children walking to visit people at this facility, and somebody will be hit by a car. And I don't want it to be my future drivers. I don't want it to be me. I don't want it to be one of these poor people trying to get to this inappropriate location. It does not have the access needed for service vehicles either. I cannot imagine a fire truck going up that road and trying to get through that wrought iron gate into that parking lot. That has not been thought through, to be honest with you. There are so many problems with this location. Going back to the fire trucks, there's no documentation from the City of Rapid City Fire Department regarding what they will be performing at this facility. It's not been made clear how any city funds provided to the fire department will be utilized with this proposed facility. It seems altogether impossible that the Rapid City Fire Department resources for these public transportation purposes do not comply with the authorized purpose and responsibility for the Rapid City Fire Department. And this is pursuant to the Municipal Code 2.36. Utilization of the fire department in such a manner is not consistent with the provision of emergency medical services. The location is not right. Everybody is not safe with this proposed plan. I think it is a great idea. I think we need this type of service in Rapid City. I'm not opposed to that. But I want you to think about all the residents in that neighborhood. There are apartment buildings going in down there. Those runners, there's women. It is a matter of time. It's not if it happens, it's when it happens that someone's safety is compromised on that road with this type of increased traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich Grable?
Thank you. I just kind of want to echo what everybody else said about the location. Obviously, the city of Rapid City has a homeless problem, and I think the city keeps making the same mistake over and over again, where you let these magnet facilities get built in places that people want to go. Whether it's Cornerstone Mission, I've got an office on 8th Street, and when the Hope Center was open, it's a minor inconvenience if you see some homeless guy standing out there with a sign trying to get money. It's not if they're sleeping on your deck or crapping in your bushes or breaking in your yard. I mean, and so I think the city needs to take these kinds of things into consideration. You guys are in planning and zoning. I think what you need to do is take a long-term look at this and say, hey, people are going to want to build these facilities. Maybe long-term we should zone something that's more appropriate than this, but it's not appropriate to put them next to people's business and people's houses. So, thank you.
Brandy Tackett?
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak this morning. As you mentioned, my name is Brandy Tackett. My husband Dan and I live just a short distance from the lodge on Skyline Drive. Our house is actually the first property you come to on Skyline Drive after you pass the lodge. We've lived in this location for the past 29 years. Dan's a retired radiation oncologist and I'm a pharmacist, and many of our neighbors, as you've seen, are also in the healthcare field. I would like to note that I have great respect for Dr. Harlow and for Dr. Tamang and what they do for the community. It is my understanding that when evaluating conditional use permit, the Planning Commission should be considering the location and character of adjacent properties as well as the adverse impacts on the adjacent properties. I believe housing up to 29 transient individuals in a motel court-style facility with exterior doors without proper interior rehabilitation space has significant potential to lead to adverse impacts on the adjacent properties and property owners. Patients and visitors who are not permanent residents of the area are likely to wander after being cooped up in a single motel room for weeks. The distance to police resources is also a concern. When the CARE campus was built, there were interviews with individuals involved with the formation of the center that noted that the placement was strategic to be near police resources. I believe the lodge facility shares similarities to that facility and should also be near these resources. The Main Street Cornerstone facility has had approximately 25 police calls within the last year. Many of them have been violent. This is public information on the police website. While I acknowledge anyone can get down on their luck and experience homelessness, it is a reality that many individuals are in this situation due to poor life choices. These poor choices do not end with the onset of an illness. The homes in the region are wooded and isolated. No street lighting or sidewalks exist. Crime and vagrancy are already a major issue. Within the last week and a half, we've had shots fired 5 separate times, with one landing in a neighbor's interior wall, as well as one arson event. 3 of those shots fired occurred last night. One of them was above my home. An unofficial dirt parking lot has developed above my home on city property that typically houses several broken down vehicles with many missing license plates, windows, or with questionable occupants doing questionable activities. This developed after the city closed their parking lot on Skyline Drive Lookout due to vandalism, as was reported to me by the Parks and Recs Department. I have resorted to carrying a handgun to take out my garbage. Documentation from the lodge states sex offenders will be screened and not admitted to the facility. This criteria, as well as most of their other criteria in this facility that has been submitted, was developed after a neighborhood meeting where we share these concerns with large parties. I do not believe there's enough screening possible during a short hospital stay to assure that the patients who are not a danger to others are being placed in this residential neighborhood. It was commented by one of the interested parties when I commended them for developing this facility idea to try to help this situation, that, oh, you're just a not in my backyard individual. But as I stated to them, as I will state to you, I don't believe this facility belongs in anyone's backyard. I feel strongly that this location is not appropriate. It puts my family, and my neighbor's safety at risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Marty Tarek.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is Martin Tarek, and thank you for your time, and I appreciate that. One of the things I want to do is continue with Brandy's comment about not in my backyard. For all the realtors in the room, you are probably very fluent with the sellers, the statutory requirement for sellers to fill out a disclosure statement, and I've got a copy of the statute in that statement. But one of those things is referred to as a material fact. Are there any material facts? Basically, it's a catch-all section in the form. Is there a material fact that impacts the value of your property in the area? And let me read a little summary here that I have. South Dakota law mandates sellers to provide a seller's property condition disclosure statement to potential buyers, sorry about that, which includes disclosing known issues with the property, including neighborhood characteristics that could impact value. Whether a group home nearby is considered a material fact depends on the situation, but is generally advisable to disclose it as could influence a buyer's decision. So attorneys love this because it's the source of litigation if something happens down the road. And I think there was some previously submitted information that a group home can decrease values of maybe up to 12%. I don't know anything about that, but I know this is the law here in the state. The one thing that I commend the folks at the site about all of the security, if you will, but if you have a lot of monitoring going on, what are you going to do with the results of the monitoring? We have a lot of cameras going on. I think the residents, including us, and just by the way, we're the house that got a bullet in the interior wall. It is not a really good situation. We caused nothing, but we're the recipient of I'm not sure what. But what we are afraid of, not afraid of, concerned is a better word, is the migration, that this will become a hub for a certain community that we do not believe, and I've worked 43 years of my life to get where I'm at right now, and now I feel like I'm being pushed out of the neighborhood. We've lived here 7 years. I work for a major company here in town. I do tax for a living, and I've worked all my career to build up enough money to buy the place when we came here in 18. And now it's like, whoa, had I known that was there then, no way. And yes, I grew up poor when I was in Kentucky. So I know what it is to be at the bottom and work your way up. So I'm getting to the end. I just want to appreciate your time, but think about the security outside the perimeter. put on your, and again, it's not nice, it's not a very pleasant experience to be a victim of a shooting. 3:30 in the morning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm sorry that happened to you. Eric Walker?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for your time. I'm Eric Walker. I'm here today to speak in opposition to this agenda item. I have a few comments and concerns about the proposal. Reading through the public comments and those of previous owners of the property, I'm concerned about the current state of the building. One, it's not clear if the wiring is up to code. Two, it doesn't appear that all the rooms are ADA compliant. And three, the interior of the building is far from what is needed today for a proper and up-to-code nursing facility. Additionally, the layout makes security a big challenge. I'm curious how security will be handled with limited staff and 28 rooms with outward-facing doors. The plan makes no mention of audible alarms on each door, which I believe is a requirement for a nursing facility. Why not build a newer building for this patient population instead of gutting and renovating an aging building that is structurally far from ideal? I'm concerned about the surrounding road and security postures suggested in the agenda item. The security fence noted only goes 3/4 of the way around the property. Is this to keep people in? Is this to keep people out? Is it intended to help with security? In one part of the attachment, the applicant states the property will be, quote, fenced all the way around. However, in the site plan, it shows a 3-foot split rail fence in the back. It will be very easy for occupants or visitors to walk around the fence at any time of day. I had one of those fences in my yard growing up, and as a young kid, it's super easy to jump through that, move through it. I don't think that's going to prevent anybody from going down that hill or around the fence that is actually there for privacy or security. These patients are not being kept against their will. They are free to leave at any time. And the reality is they will exercise that right and leave when they want. I guarantee sometimes that will be without a ride from the fire department. The reality is also that some of the visitors to this facility will try to walk there. I see folks on Floorman all the time hiking up or walking down. And for both these pedestrian groups, that gives them 3 options. They either walk up Tower or down Tower, up or down Floorman, or they might try to walk down the highway. That is the easiest, not the easiest, but the quickest way into town. And I worry what would happen if some of these patients try to do that. These streets have no sidewalk and pose tremendous danger to pedestrians and drivers. I live near the proposed site, and I don't walk these streets. I stay on Pevins. I do not try to walk Tower Road. Overall, I believe this idea will benefit Monument and it will benefit Rapid City, but I think you should deny this conditional use permit as it is proposed today. The proposal you put forward is the wrong building and in the wrong location. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Ramey?
Good morning, I'm Michael Ramey. I appreciate you hearing me out. I pose this and I have many concerns, but I'm going to pick one to talk about today. I live in the Skyline Ranch community. Skyline Ranch Road is so adjacent to this property. You can stand on Skyline Ranch Road, you can see the property. And a couple years back, there was some dispute about an apartment complex being built on Tower Road that now is called the Altitude. It's been built, it's operational. Since that apartment complex has been there, the foot traffic in my neighborhood is quadrupled. So my neighborhood's a private neighborhood. It's privately owned. The city does not maintain our roads. We have to dig our way out of the snow in the winter. We're on our own back there. But the foot traffic has quadrupled since the apartment complex has been developed, often resulting in my property is on the corner there, this big, lovely, large field. People think it's a park. I'll have people standing in the field with their dogs, and which really aggravates my dog because he smells other dogs out there. And so that's very common now, but never an act of violence, people just walking. My biggest concern is that this population is not incarcerated. You know, human beings ought to be able to walk around. Part of your recovery when you're getting better is you might want to take a walk on a nice day. There's no place to do that in this location. People are going to walk. Human beings are going to get out, enjoy a nice day. But my neighborhood is going to see a lot of that traffic when they're walking. And I don't know what the boundaries are going to be like, what they're going to do in terms of respecting property boundaries. And most people perceive my yard as a public park right now. And so there's no public parks in that area. That'd be a great thought, you know, if you're especially going to continue to build in that area. So my concern is this population, as human beings, they have a right to get out and move about. They're going to do that. They're going to be walking in our neighborhoods. Traffic is already quadrupled in my neighborhood from the apartment complex. And so my concern is, what's this population's behavior going to be like in my neighborhood? I got 3 little kids. I leave them out in the yard. They play all the time. I'm doing chores in the house. I'd like to think that I can continue to do that, especially with the amount of property taxes I'm paying on that big lot. And so I don't want to have to think about who's wandering in my yard at any given moment. And human beings have a right to get out and walk. I don't know how we're going to rectify those two conflicts. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Robert Sage?
Thank you for allowing me time to speak. I am a similar resident of the neighborhood. Marty, with the shots fired, was my neighbor, still is, thankfully. And I'm here to speak not just on safety of our neighborhood, but on safety of the patients. As Mr. Walker reviewed, the structure is not secure, either with a 3/4 fence or with outside doors. All facilities that are nursing, and this application specifically states this is a healthcare facility, not a homeless shelter. As a physician practicing for 17 years, a student under Mark Harlow, wonderful physician, Dr. Temang, done wonderful things for addiction. This is not how healthcare facilities are built. They're built with common hallways so that patients can be monitored easily, accessed easily if there's an issue. There's no rapid response team. There's no provision for healthcare personnel whatsoever on the property at all times. If someone has an issue, if they throw a blood clot, if they have a stroke, these are, as Dr. Palmer referenced, also very sick patients who have more than just one issue. So to me, this isn't a safe building for these patients. This isn't a safe location for the points that everybody else mentioned. This needs to have another location that is close to EMS, other healthcare services, fire department, police presence. As we mentioned, we have none unless we call them, and it takes 2 hours to show up. Someone drove through my lawn, destroyed my gate 2 weeks ago. It's the same issue. We have drunk drivers coming off the park. This person was under the influence. It's not a safe area for these patients. It's not safe. It needs to be in a new location by other services. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Hammerbeck?
My name is Brian Hammerbeck, and I'm Dr. Sage's neighbor. As you might guess, I'm against the facility being up in the Big Sky Lodge. I'm concerned about the expansion of our homeless population into a remote residential area, which is what this is. I love Rapid City. I love our police. I love our fire department. A side note is I love the military. I don't love the homeless, but I have concern for them. And I'm a simple farm kid thinker. I'm a businessman. My understanding is the care campus was intended for this purpose. Millions of dollars were spent there. There's resources there. The authorities are there, the sheriff, the Rapid City Police. I don't understand why that facility is not being used for what I thought was the intended purpose. I'm not knocking the care campus, but my guess is that it's being underutilized. I mean, it's in the right location, but I don't know that. It's just my guess. My wife and I and several others attended Monument's presentation for the rehab facility that's also going on Tower, below, really below the Big Sky Motel, down about halfway down. Much less concerns about that than this. A way different situation. I'm also a fan of Monument. We have 5 children. One of those is actually coming from SDSU to work for Monument as a registered nurse. We have an affinity for this town, for Monument Health, but it appears that they have a need to discharge these folks somewhere. It feels like that coordination should be done in conjunction with the care campus, not a remote facility up in our residential neighborhood. It also appears, as a side note, that the from the expansion of the fire department downtown, that the fire department may need that facility for parking, the existing rescue mission. I don't know that that has anything to do with this, but as a business person, you just put two and two together and it's an observation. My wife and I moved into our home in 2003. I am probably in the minority that I'm less concerned about the values going down. Frankly, if the value went down, our real estate taxes would go down some. I don't want to leave this place. I don't want to leave where we live. I love this place. I love our town, but I want my wife to be safe. I'm a hardline person. I'd take a hardline approach to some of this stuff way more than my kind-hearted wife. I do not like the panhandling at every street corner. Last night, I'm getting out of my pickup to come inside and I hear at least 6 gunshots. I'm a gun guy. And we've had this problem in our neighborhood. I chase what I thought was the perpetrator clear out to Countryside South until the police dispatch told me to stop following him. And it pissed me off. It's like, maybe we can solve this. Maybe this is our person that's causing some of this mayhem in our community. That has really nothing to do with what's going on with the Big Sky proposal, but what I know is the Big Sky proposal is not going to make our neighborhood less safe.
Can you wrap up, Mr. Hammerbeck?
I'll wrap up, Chairman. My wife is scared to walk in our neighborhood now, and she's never been a gun person, but I've placed guns at her request in almost every corner of our house, so when I'm gone, she's safe. And again, I know what's going on here is not going to make her any more safe. So thank you, and please understand that I'm against this facility.
Thank you. Sonali Kachikian? Oh, okay. All right. Glenda Williams?
Good morning, Glenda Williams. My husband, Bob, spoke a little bit ago. He was the one who was hit by rifle. You don't know when someone's aiming a rifle at you from a vehicle, if it's a deer rifle or if it's a airsoft rifle. It hurt. We had 3 layers of clothing because it was about 10 below. We walk up Skyline Drive from Pevins Parkway intersection. We live in the intersection of Pevins and Skyline. We walk up every day to get our mail, picking up garbage. The garbage that we pick up is obscene. Between clothes, we don't pick up the condoms, we pick up bloody knives, people's clothes that they've discarded because of the sex traffic up there, all kinds of stuff. We have been run off the road. When we hear a car, we turn around, we face the traffic, and we look at the people. That doesn't stop some of them from trying to run us off the road. And all we're doing is walking, picking up trash. So it's not a safe area. There's no place to walk. I agree with almost 90, all the comments so far I agree with, but I'd like to bring up one more point that nobody probably knows. Is some statistics about Skyline Drive area. 2 years ago, we decided to petition this group. We didn't get this far, but we had three stumbling blocks to moving our driveway. People use our driveway as a public park too. They urinate in it, they use our water, they wash their cars, they yell at us, they throw rocks at our house. We've had major damage to our house that we've had to repair. It's not safe. People walk up to our house and just look in the windows. I've had to put little cafe curtains in my front dining room so people don't just walk up and look. We've had known drug dealers in our driveway, either hiding drugs, doing what knows what. But we've called the police, we have the license plate numbers, and they say, oh yeah, it's a known drug dealer's car. So we have that kind of stuff in our driveway all the time. So we wanted to move our driveway. To do this, I wanted to say it's for safety. That's the whole reason. You can't see cars coming screaming down Skyline to our driveway, so it's very, very unsafe. So we wanted to move it, then put a gate up so we have less traffic in our driveway. So I went to the police and I got the list of the crime in just this area on Skyline Drive. In 1 year, we had 203 reports in just this one area of Skyline Wilderness, which is we call it the Open Air Drug Mart. It's a stone wall overlook down to Tower. And in the exact locations of these, they did it by the people that had called in and their addresses. The places where you see the most problems are the ones that these people have highlighted. And it's very close to this lodge. It's not a safe place. And all this gunshot stuff that's going on, our neighborhood is very concerned. I do not agree that this is a good place to have this happen. We've seen it for 13 years now. It's gotten exponentially bad in the last 5. And I implore you not to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Nielsen?
Good morning, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Don Nielsen. I am an emergency physician here in Rapid City. I see many of my former patients here in this room. I'm glad to see that you're all doing well. I've been practicing here for 12 years. I also serve on the Medical Staff Quality Review Committee at Monument Health, and I'm the only representative for South Dakota for the American College of Emergency Physicians at the Council of the National Council. I recently spoke with my colleagues regarding a facility like this, to which they said they're putting it in a backyard. That is crazy. This doesn't belong in a residential neighborhood. I treat these patients every day. There's no one, aside from potentially the actual director at Cornerstone, who knows these patients better than me. Not a single person. There are very dangerous individuals. You hear this story about the crime that people are having up in our neighborhood. Those people will end up near this facility selling drugs to the people that have drug addiction problems at this facility. This will increase. There are many concerns with this facility. I echo what's been said. The safety concerns. Perhaps you've never seen when someone has been struck by a vehicle. I have, many times. It is not pretty. These people will be hit by vehicles on that road. You looked at that road. There are no sidewalks. There is no safe place to walk. They will get out. They will exercise their rights, and they will be struck. People will die. This area is a residential neighborhood. There's no sidewalks, no adequate lighting. The lack of infrastructure raises significant risk for the pedestrians, for vehicular traffic. I have 2 small children. They will eventually grow and they will become drivers. And then they will be at risk of hitting these people who are out on the sidewalks also. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to rewrite my speech into a second draft because yesterday my office faces the exterior wall, and because of the shootings, I didn't want to sit there. It is important that your medical people feel safe when they go to work. When I go to work at night and leave my wife and my 2 kids at home, it is important that I feel that they are safe. This is the opposite of safe. In my profession, I get to make life and death decisions every day. Today might be one of the first times that you do. And so I need you to very carefully consider what you're going to do with this decision. This is not a game. This is life and death. This is not a typical planning commission. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last request form I have. Is there anybody in the audience that we've missed that would like to address the commission? All right. Vicki?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to reach out to the applicants now that they've heard all of these comments to see if they would like to take an opportunity to speak at this point and address some of the concerns that were expressed. And Mr. Chair, we should probably limit them to 3 minutes as well.
Same, yep. And identify yourself once you're up.
Hello, my name is Stephen Tomei. I'm the Director of Addiction Medicine and Community Health Services for Monument Health and a board member for Cornerstone Rescue Mission. I have worked my entire professional capacity in Rapid City, and I can tell you that having been involved in the development of this medical respite program for over a year, having a facility like this within our community will be a tremendous game changer. It will help the infrastructure of our system work so much better. It will help the homeless population management issue function considerably better. It'll help the city and it'll help the state. This is why the coalition that we've gathered is so excited about doing so. And secondly, I understand the emotions and the concerns, and I respect every comment that was made. In fact, many of these people I have incredibly high opinions of. Brandy Tackett, there is no one with a better reputation at Monument than her. John Palmer, Dr. Palmer, he's a hero of mine. And so I can assure you that everything that's been said really lands for me. But I want to talk to you about the biggest misconception that I heard. Who are these patients? Who are these people? When when any hospital discharges a patient, we have to make sure that they're safe for wherever they may be going. And a lot of times, when a person comes into the hospital, they may not be safe to return to the very environment they were at before, even if they were housed. Even people like us, we may have to undergo rehabilitation. It is exponentially worse with the homeless population. Across the country, we see medical respites rising because hospitals have difficulty finding a safe place to put a patient who is recovering. You or I could go home after a normal hospitalization. Their home is the street. So the patients that we select for this will be carefully screened. These are not patients who need significant medical care. This is very important. These are patients who are safe to go home if they had a home. This is not a SNF. This is not someone that requires a crash cart or a rapid response team or a nurse. These are folks that if they had a clean bed and food and maybe one relative, they would be home. So when we talk about safety of the environment, we take it very seriously. And what these patients will need at discharge to be a safe disposition plan for them will be food, shelter, and someone looking out for them. In the last 15 seconds, I want to say that the coalition that we've built, it's a miracle that we have 4 large agencies that have all submitted budgetary issues, budgetary requests to push this forward. Cornerstone has already purchased this building. The die is cast. This is a must-win situation for us to get medical respite. We've crossed the Rubicon. If we die here, it is very likely that medical respite dies in its entirety. It's not always perfect, but it is a critical decision that you make, and I agree, lives are on the line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission members. My name is Ryan Marks. I'm the captain of the Mobile Integrated Health Program with the Rapid City Fire Department. I just briefly want to explain what it is we will do, what it is we currently do, and how we will be helping people. Just like Dr. Tamang spoke on, individuals who would normally stay at the hospital for a week, for 2 weeks because they have no recuperative location, they will go here. They will go to this respite location. These individuals will be checked on daily, following a care plan drafted by the doctors, by our community health workers with the Rapid City Fire Department. Any appointments, any lab draws, any visits, those appointments will be facilitated by our community health workers, not in fire trucks, not in ambulances, in nondescript passenger vehicles, one of which is a minivan, one of which is a sedan. These are folks who want to heal. These are folks who do not want, they're not incarcerated. They're not there against their will. They want to heal. They want to get better and then move on to the next step of their life. We are there to hopefully change their trajectory in a healthy manner. Thank you. I'll stand for questions if needed.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Lieutenant Mark Cody. I'm with the police department. I am the South Side liaison sector lieutenant, if you will. So a couple things. One is that the police department is in support of this program. We're in support of the program because we see the need on the street when we deal with some of our houseless population, and sometimes when they're on the street recovering from medical procedures. The other thing I wanted to talk about today was a little bit of the crime statistics. The majority of the crime statistics deal with traffic issues. We have lots of traffic stops up there, vehicle complaints, and crashes. But what I mean by lots is for the street, for the area. We had 139 calls for service up in that area in the last year, not including last night, obviously. These were run earlier this week. The other thing I want to talk about was in regards to the gunshots last night. I was texting with the supervisor who was on duty last night about the gunshot calls, and it's consistent with the issues we've had up there in the past, which is it was mobile, it was a vehicular issue. It wasn't with foot traffic there. I know that in the past we have had issues with some of those turnaround spots, the lookout areas, and we don't require officers to log every time they drive through the street. So I don't have accurate numbers to how many times an officer has actually driven down Skyline, just because we don't ask officers to log every street that they run down. I can stand by for any questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll probably call you back up if there's something.
Okay.
I think there's another speaker, it looks like.
Thank you.
Thank you for having the meeting here today and for inviting us. My name is Lisa Allison. I'm the Executive Director of Cornerstone Rescue Mission. I just want to respond to some of the points. I usually try to be more conversational, so I'm going to kind of bulletproof, so I apologize if it comes across as a little bit rushed. We have purchased the building, and it is zoned commercial. Whether people like that or not, that's the reality of the situation. There are 16 homes in a half-mile radius. So anywhere else that we would go in town would probably be much more populated. And that's one of the reasons we wanted this facility, is because of the sparse population. It's a beautiful facility. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's conducive to rest, it's close to the downtown, but yet far enough away that people can heal in peace. And that's for all the reasons that other people may not like it. That's one of the reasons that we do. I understand that there are several safety concerns regarding Skyline Drive, and they've talked about several of them today, but that's Skyline Drive, and those issues were there before we would even come there. They were there when it was a motel. So I understand the safety concerns, and I feel for the neighbors. Everybody wants to live in a safe neighborhood, but there's already issues. And to say that we will increase that, I don't know that we will, and I don't know that we won't, but I think it's really unfair to pin that on us before we even open, when you had it operating as a hotel for 50 years, and God only knows who was staying there. And it didn't seem to be an issue when the Banditos rented out this particular motel either and lived there. So that's all I'll say about that. Pedestrian issues, this is a public road that everybody can walk on. I've been up to the facility several times, and every time I am there, somebody is walking their dog. They're out and about, so people can walk on that road, whether they're staying with us or not. Our goal is to not have people go on the road. As a matter of fact, we're going to be writing it into the stipulation of their contract, if they stay there, that if they leave the facility, then their bed will be lost. There's plenty of opportunity on that 2.1 acre lot for them to walk. As a matter of fact, if you look at the parking lot, it's almost like a track, and it's level, so that would be even healthier for them. Let me see. The people that are coming to this facility will be screened by the doctors. They're going to be screened by the mobile medics, and we're going to know their history if they've stayed with us. So you're having 3 entities screen these people to see if they're going to be appropriate for this facility. So it's highly screened. Let me see. We're here with a pure heart. We want to help the homeless. That's it. where we just found this wonderful location. To us is wonderful. To other people in the audience, it's not. And I understand their feelings, and I appreciate their honesty with us. But we're just here to do the right thing for a very vulnerable population. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. I think it's our turn on the commission now. Questions or comments? Haven?
Thank you. It seemed like it's obvious that there are several things that have been raised here this morning that are beyond what we can decide. For example, ADA compliance, the electrical system, sprinklers, all of those things are legitimate things I think that the applicant needs to consider, but that's not something that we're here to decide. The question I had is the application here is for a conditional use permit, and so why is it before us? And kind of coupled with that would be this property is zoned general commercial, so there could be a lot of uses to this property that wouldn't require a decision or approval by this by the planning commissions.
Vicki?
Mr. Chair, so with the property being zoned general commercial, there are many uses that are permitted. A hotel would be one, a restaurant would be another, a nightclub, bowling alley. Those are the kinds of things that we would typically see in general commercial. That would just be getting a building permit. In this case, because group homes, typically within our ordinance, are in residential areas. That's actually where we want them. It's a home. You have to look at what kind of group home it is, what's the service they're providing, and what is the impact on that neighborhood based on the amenities that exist for that neighborhood. So lots of great conversation today, but because this is general commercial, the ordinance is written where it's not a permitted use. This should be a commercial activity on this lot. It's a conditional use to determine whether or not it's going to fit well in the residential and potentially have an impact on other commercial uses in the area. Hence, that's the reason that you're looking at it. If I might, you had made a comment about today it wouldn't be on us to talk about the safety of the building, but in fact it actually is. This is a change in use. And so as a part of that, they will have to bring the building up to compliance for all fire code and building code, all ADA accessibility requirements set forth by code internal to the building and in the parking lot must also be met. We've let the applicants know that. Jessica did actually add it in as a stipulation just to make it clear to everyone. And they will not get a certificate of occupancy to occupy until those improvements are made.
Yeah, thank you. I do understand that would be one of the stipulations, that they meet the city requirements, code requirements on a lot of those different issues. Apparently, the Cornerstone isn't the current owner of the property. I guess my question would be to them, obviously, if they purchased the property, what use could they make of it if this application today was not approved?
Mr. Chair?
And maybe, well, go ahead, Vicki.
I was just going to say, as Lisa's coming to the mic, could we have you and the Planning Commission make a motion to extend the meeting beyond 9 o'clock, please?
Motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock. Second.
All right. Vince made the motion. Eric seconded that motion. All those in favor of extending the meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And, excuse me, and I think I raised one issue, but there were some other issues that I think could address to the applicant. So what, for example, what is the current situation for the population that is proposed to be housed? And there's been discussion about screening the people. I think in the application specifically, they said there would be no sex offenders that here. Is there additional screening? For example, if they've had previous, have a criminal record, would they be ones that would be excluded from the population?
Okay, I'll try and remember to answer all of those questions, and if I forget one, please go back to that. One of the reasons that we went with a conditional use permit is because we wanted staff to live there 24/7. We could not do that under the general commercial. We had this, am I correct on that, Vicki? Yeah. And we want somebody up there 24/7, staying there, living there, making sure that if there's an issue, that there's somebody there all the time to be there. So that was the whole impetus of the conditional use permit. Cornerstone Rescue Mission does own the property. We closed on it in September. So we are the owner. We believe that we have a really good plan in place here. If not, we can go back to running a motel and create some income to help Cornerstone Rescue Mission. So that there is that possibility there. That's not what we want to do. We believe a better use of it because of its location is to help people who, if they were not in this facility, would be in the hospital, thus opening up 29 potential hospital beds. Our hospital is already full. We're having more people coming in due to the Ellsworth expansion, and then, a lot of other people are just moving in. They're seeing the beauty of South Dakota. This could help the healthcare system overall by providing more beds for us and people we love and we know. And as the screening. We do screen for sex offenders. Everybody who comes to the mission is screened for sex offenders. So they will not be allowed in this facility. And when I talk about screening, mobile medics have worked with the homeless population for years. They know them by name. We know most of them. I've got several years of case notes of people. And we can talk to the hospital staff. If somebody is in restraints and is verbally abusive to the medical staff, they're not going to qualify for here. If they have been staying at the mission and I go through case notes and saw that they were a difficult client at the mission, they're not going to be staying up there. If Ryan has worked with them Captain Marks and his team has worked with them as a mobile medic, they're not going to be able to stay up there if they've had some really difficult interactions with these people. So that's what I mean by the screening, particularly. It's just kind of a group of us sitting together and saying, is this person going to be a good fit or not?
Does that include a screening for their criminal history?
We do. I would know some of that from staying at the mission. We did not put that in there, but that is something that we can do. I have asked the police department if I could just get can I call you and say, give you a name and a date of birth and say, is this person a violent criminal, yes or no? I am not able to get that information. So one of the things that we can do is we can do background checks if required. It would be costly, but if that's what people need to feel a little bit safer, we can certainly consider that.
Thank you. One question
Do you have
that
something to add?
Haven referred to that I just wanted to ask explicitly. How are these prospective clients for this prospective facility, what's happening right now, today? Where are they? How are they treated?
So everyone coming into this hospital, everybody coming into this facility would be in a hospital. We're not taking people from the emergency room. They have to be in a hospital bed. Anybody coming up or walking up that huge hill, which I don't see, can't just come to this because it's Cornerstone and say, I want a bed. No. Your only way in is you're coming directly from the hospital to this facility. And I'll let Dr. Tamang give you a little bit more information on how he would choose it from that perspective.
Thank you, Haven, for the question. Screening is critical for this program, and we're not inventing the wheel here. There is a National Institute for Respite Care, which is how we originally devised why this particular facility would be a critical piece of healthcare infrastructure. It's laid out quite clearly the kind of patient you want. You want someone who is relatively benign in mannerisms, someone who is agreed and willing to play by the rules that are laid out. Every patient at any significant hospital will have a case manager and a physician, In this particular program, both of those people will evaluate the patient, and the physician will write a care plan. And the physician will have to feel comfortable that the patient has an adequate environment. And so this is not a rubber stamp. Again, to reiterate, we take the concerns extremely seriously, and we're not going to put someone there that would pose a problem and a danger to the whole facility. We have one bad actor that we put in there, all of a sudden our reputation is, in trouble. And so we're going to be, I would say, overly vigilant in ensuring that we put people there that are innocuous. And it'll start at the healthcare level because, as Lisa said, there's one customer for a medical respite. Medical respites are tied to a hospital. And so Monument will be responsible for the screening, the selection, and the transfer process. And then beyond us, it goes to the agency level, where Cornerstone has the right to say, no, we know this person and our staff's had a problem with this person, and so that person can be denied. The mobile medics, as Lisa alluded to, they spend a lot of time with this population. They'll also have the opportunity to say, this isn't someone that should be appropriate. And we will be working with a daily basis. This will be a concerted effort among multiple agencies. And then just to touch base, I think, Vince, what you said regarding like what's happening to these patients now. What's happening now is we're doing the very best we can with a very broken system. So if a physician, when I was a hospitalist, for example, and routinely you have homeless on your census of patients you're taking care of, you cannot in goodwill, ethically, discharge that patient to the street if you know they're going to get sick and come right back. Don will have to see him in the emergency department. This time they'll be septic and they'll need to go to the ICU because they had a leg wound that any of us would have been fine if we had a clean bed and a place to stay, but we discharged them to the street where they got an infection. This is a reality that we face right now. So some of these patients stay in the hospital for weeks. Sometimes we can get swing beds or transferred to other facilities. But as you might imagine, it's not the most appealing patient transfer for other facilities to accept. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to add, if that's okay, is that every single one of these people will have these patients will have a case manager assigned to them through the community health care workers. So they will be case managing them while they're at this facility, and when they leave this facility, that case manager goes with them. So there is going to be a continuation of services from the hospital to the respite center and where they move beyond.
Thank you. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of emotions on this one, obviously. Appreciate everybody's feedback on both sides of this. At the end of the day, I personally try not to let emotions factor into these decisions, and this is a tough decision. Base it on facts, empirical things that I can actually see. I used to be a cop and a corrections officer, so I've got a little experience with the homeless population, a lot of medical people in my family. I just see big picture. I don't think this is the right facility. I can't support it. The one thing that stands out to me is the safety of the people that it's supposed to serve. I think it's wholly inadequate as a medical facility, as a care facility. There's a lot of other factors that go into this, and again, I'm just basing this on things that I see on paper, things that I know to be true. Steep grade, Highway 16, excuse me. It just doesn't make sense. I can't believe that there's not a better location in Rapid City for something like this. And yeah, there is a need, huge need, for better services and more service for homeless people, mentally ill people, that sort of thing. Absolutely commend you guys for that. But in the big picture, from a security standpoint, a safety standpoint, a medical standpoint, there's no way I can support this. So I just want you to know that this is not emotional. This is a tough decision we have up here, and it has to be. And I don't think it meets the criteria. I really don't, for a few reasons. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marnie, I just want to let you know that we did get Mike's email. We saw it, so just so that you know. And I did have the same questions that Haven brought up and that were addressed. And yes, screening is extremely important as to who's going to enter this facility. And of course, I was also making notes of the fact that this is general commercial, and the property to the would be the north is also general commercial as well. Park Forest across the street. And just so that you know, I have walked that road. I mean, I used to work up at the television station up on that hill, but I've also walked from if you look at one of these maps, it shows right across the other side of the street is Alta Vista. I live on Alta Vista. I walked from Alta Vista all the way up Tower Road, down that road. I was very concerned when this first came up that whether or not that there's going to be sidewalk safety or pedestrian safety on that road. That was one of my concerns, but I think you've addressed that. I'm not sure what the condition is of our citizens that will need this facility. You know better than I do, and for the medical professionals that came and talk about it, I needed your input. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We still have, one of the things I heard over and over again today is that there is compassion for our neighbors, compassion for people, and this facility is making an attempt to complete that compassion that you asked for. That's the tough decision. That's the one that we just talked about regarding emotions, leaving the emotions out of this. If I could leave the emotions out of it, sure, I could be a robot, but I'm not. I'm a human. So I've considered this, and I've taken a realistic approach to it, and that's what I intend to do. Thank you.
Eric Hikas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few meetings ago, Vicki stated very eloquently that everybody deserves to have a voice in these difficult decisions. I think there's been a lot of voices shared. I've heard the voices, and I'm ready to make a decision. I do want to go on record in stating that there is some issues with crime in this area. It's not just this project, but the entire Skyline Drive area, because of the remoteness and the lack of lighting and what I would refer to in our professional opinion as the broken window theory, with crumbling infrastructure and deferred maintenance. This area is a little bit on the edge of the appearance of maybe some blight, and I don't know that until we get on board with updating and repairing and fixing all these things up, that these crime issues are going to continue until those are addressed. I do appreciate the very thorough job that both sides of this issue have made. I'm ready to vote, but I wanted to go on record with the broken window analogy. You can look it up. Some pretty good theory there, and also the fact that there is crime up there that we need to be on top of, and it's not just this project. So I'm glad that this was a voice that some got to share as well on those concerns. Throwing rocks, dealing drugs, vandalism, etc. So thank you.
Ron, can we ask them some questions?
I'm sorry. Nope. No. It's not a discussion. Sorry. Brooke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few comments, and I too feel ready to vote. Number one, I don't think anybody's disputing the need for the property or the type of care that this would provide. Number two, I've seen our community come together and find appropriate solutions for things like this. I too don't think that this is the right one. I want to make sure that we're deciding on the things that we can decide on. So I would say if I had to give a reason, it would be characteristic of the neighborhood, pedestrian and vehicular access, and lighting and safety. So it is emotional to listen to families and moms get up here today, no doubt about it, but I want to make sure that we can make decisions based on how we're able to. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield, but I too would be ready to vote.
Okay. Haven? Oops, sorry.
Thank you. There was a reference to the use of this building in 2020, and I believe in the presentation you were going to go back to that, or were going to raise that issue or discuss that issue. And what was the experience in 2020 and exactly how was the building used at that time?
Mark Harlow, long-term physician in town and a volunteer at Cornerstone for the last 2 decades. When COVID came into our world, I was brand new over at Oyate, and we were faced with a disease that was taking young lives. We had no understanding of the pathophysiology of the disease. We had no treatment, no vaccines, and no understanding of how this was going. I was seeing patients daily who came in and tested positive for COVID, and they were then going to go home to a trailer with 10 relatives, elders and infants. So with my 12 years of military background, I said, we need a field hospital. So I rented the Travelodge Motel. I went in and put my credit card on the desk and said, I want to rent a whole building. And we managed that for a couple of months, and then we moved up the hill to the Big Sky Motel. We were there. We moved in on the night of Halloween, the blizzard. We emptied the teepee camp that was out by Stevens High School to get people in, to get them warm and safe. And we stayed there until the end of March. So we were there through the dead of winter for this same subset of people who had great risk of exposure to their families and to the community. So we brought them in, kept them safe and warm, got them through their illness, and then sent them back to their families thereafter, very similar to what our goals are with the respite center. So if that answers your question, Mr. Stuck, that is how it is we came to use the Big Sky Motel. And that said, to my knowledge, and I defer to my neighbors because it is worth noting that I live up there as well, it is worth noting that to my knowledge there were no problems with our occupancy of that facility for that need during that time.
Thank you. I was wanting you to make that statement as to, what issues did you see during the time that you were operating that property in 2020 and 2021?
I was there every day, even for, and so too was Captain Marks. And I think we were good neighbors, but.
Could we speak to that?
And as far as other locations, that issue has been raised. Was there a search for other locations for this purpose?
We looked at the Super 8 motel, which also came up for sale. I think that Care Campus is a consideration. I leave that to your judgment and to the judgment of the City Council. But yes, but this seemed suitable given the fact that we had already occupied it for a healthcare purpose in times past, but in the winter. And I'm respectful and sensitive to the complaints and concerns that people have expressed. As I said, I live there. But the crime that's there now shouldn't be something that we're blamed for because of a plan we have put forth. Is it ideal? Is there an ideal? But how far away do we have to go? City line, county line, state line? How far away do we have to go before we find an acceptable location? And again, I guess that's for you to decide. Any other questions I can help you with?
No, thank you, Dr. Harlow. I just wanted to say it is a very difficult decision for a lot of reasons. And in this particular case, there's people on both sides of this that I've known for a long, long time and consider to be friends. So that just makes the decision more difficult.
We've got a couple folks that would like to speak.
Hi.
Please identify
Yes,
yourself.
I'm Altina Three Stars. I currently work with Journey On, so I work directly with our houseless relatives. I want to add and piggyback onto Dr. Harlow. I worked for Great Plains Tribal Leaders Health Board during that time, and I was actually one of the case managers that was there on site every day working with the relatives. I know there was concerns that you wanted to address, any issues maybe that you might have come across during that time. I feel like the partnership with the city, the mobile medic, everybody on board did a really great job in that short amount of time, with saving lives and getting people to where they needed to be. There is a couple concerns. For one, I think during the wintertime, that is the little slope. I think that is one concern. I drove a government GSA vehicle, a minivan, and believe me, it did not get me up and safe and back and forth on top of that ramp, whether I had passengers in the vehicle or not. There was a couple of times where I almost slid off into the ditch. And so that would have been a concern for mine, but I'm sure they can address that with a four-wheel drive. So I took my own personal vehicle after that. I didn't feel safe driving a government vehicle. So I utilized my own vehicle during the pandemic to make sure I got up and down that road safely. And another concern I know that they had brought up was the ADA requirements, the bathrooms. I had quite a few relatives, mobility issues, getting to the restroom or not, just from, the beds to the bathrooms. I know that was something that they brought up to me as well. To address the concerns, like as far as safety goes, these are people that we have built rapport with. These are people that are actually relatives of mine that do deserve a place to heal. And so my concern is, if not here, then where? Where is it acceptable to have this kind of care for individuals that are needing the healing that they need to get? And so my thing is, I understand the safety concern. I am a mother of 5 children. I too am a gun owner. And so for me, during the pandemic, I chose to purchase a gun. So I understand like the idea of crime, but there's a lot of stigma that's going on in the room right now that automatically puts our homeless relatives as violent, or they all have mental health or addiction issues. So I just want to make sure that we're addressing that whenever you guys are making your guys' decision. I have worked in behavioral health for the past 3.5 years, and so making sure that you're making well thought out decisions based upon some of the very open-ended statements that were made in the room. And I just hope today that you guys can consider like the awesome work that the individuals here are looking to address our houseless relatives. And when I say relatives, I mean anybody and everybody. So we're a community. I hope we can act like a community, and I hope you guys keep that in mind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I just wanted to speak
I don't remember your name.
I'm Dr.
I
Nielsen,
apologize.
Don Nielsen. I am an emergency physician.
Yep.
I wanted to speak on the COVID question that Dr. Harlow answered. So obviously, I was directly involved with COVID in a very intimate way and understand very deeply about what happened during that time. And from the community perspective, 2 things. So first, we should never go back to what we did during COVID as a justification for what we are doing now. That is insanity. Second, just for example, I used the same mask for a week during that, and we irradiated it every day. It was insanity. A lot of trauma there. But we had people sleeping on our lawn during that time frame. So in case you're wondering, like, it wasn't just like everything was fine. And second, people aren't going to go and visit people who have COVID, especially not during that time. We all remember what that was like. I remember it maybe a little bit better because of the great deal that it affected my life. But like I said, we should not be going back and using COVID as this was an example of things that we have done. That was a very different time. Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of things have been said back and forth, pro and against, I guess, this facility. I am familiar with the homeless population only because I am a volunteer at a church downtown that works with the homeless. And so I've seen them, I've visited with them, and people in our church have got to know them intimately. They know their backgrounds, they know who they are. At one time, there was a gentleman who came, and he had been stabbed, and we sent him to the hospital to, get his wounds. When he decided he wanted to go home, he just left and came back downtown, and I thought, how can this man survive? He has this wound, and he's going to be living on the streets. He's not going to make it. I don't know what happened to him. I've never seen him since. But I know there's a great need to have a place for people to recover, and no matter who you are, you have a right to heal. And going back on the streets is not it. So I think there's a need for a place like this. I really do. I believe that in my heart. Whether this is the right place or not, it's hard to tell because you have a lot of people who have emotions from past experiences. They have emotions perceived maybe of who these people are, and they're scared, and I can understand that. And they're worried about their safety. They're worried about people walking the streets. I don't know that this is the right place, but I do know that it's a definite need in this community, and finding another place is hard because you have to come up with other dollars, you have to figure out where it's going to be, and I can guarantee no matter where it is in town, somebody's going to object. If you want to go around the CARE campus, I don't know if there's a place out there that's even worthy to do that, but I just wanted to express my feelings about this, that it is a definite need, and I hope something comes forward that we can have a place for everyone to recover. So that's it.
All right, Dr. Harlow, did you have something to add? You have to, okay. Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, if I could get Vicki. Vicki, when we started this, and you mentioned criteria, could you take another moment again to remind us criteria?
So this is deemed a group home. A group home is allowed in general commercial. It's conditional because it may not be allowed in all general commercial. To determine whether or not this location is correct, you have to look specifically at the criteria. So what is the design of the facility? Is it meeting the needs of the uses that they are proposing to offer? Will it create additional traffic? Will it create noise, odor, or other nuisances that would impact the neighborhood? Those are the kinds of things that you have to look at as you're making your decision.
Thank you. And I believe we talked about screening and how the screening is going to be done. And one of the medical professionals talked about common spaces, hallways, things like that. I guess where I'm coming from, and just a little bit of background about myself, is that I'm not a medical professional, but I was a drug and alcohol program advisor in the Navy. And I can tell you that even our strongest, even the men and women that we send to war for us have problems with addictions, and it happens no matter where you go. Now, on board an aircraft carrier, once we're out at sea, they're stuck. So, it's one way to get sober, regardless of whatever that addiction is. And it isn't just alcohol and drugs. There are other addictions. So, again, when we look at the criteria here and what we're trying to develop, those stipulations that have been put forth involving the screening and how we're going to protect the community that surrounds the facility, I think has been talked about. As far as what has happened in the past regarding why didn't anybody complain about who was staying at the motel prior to its before it's in existence, if you will. But we do want to go forward and make sure that we're doing it in a reasonable, rational way. Thank you.
Haven?
I guess my comment is in general commercial, there's a lot of uses that this property could be put to that may impact the area more than more than this proposal that we're discussing here today, and that I guess is kind of weighing on my mind. Is there a lot of those uses could be more detrimental to the community than the proposal that we're considering.
Brooke?
Mr. Chair, I don't mean to cut off discussion, but I'm going to go ahead and be bold and make a motion to deny the conditional use permit to allow a group home for respite care in that location.
Okay. Is there a second for Brooke's motion to deny the conditional use permit?
Second.
All right. Brooke made the motion to deny. Eric Heikus seconded that motion. Any comments from the commission on the motion? I'll make one, and usually I stay out of discussion until the bitter end. I'm voting no on this just due to the lack of pedestrian infrastructure around this area. I don't think this is a facility that is holding people against their will. There will be a potential for folks to leave and come, and I think that needs to be on a location served by sidewalks. Anybody else have any comments to add before we take a look at this motion? All right. All those in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Aye.
Could we do a roll call? Oh, I just turned it off. Try again. Got it.
All right. Arguello. Braun.
Aye.
Bowman. Ginsburg. Hikas. Kaufman. Stuck. Vidal.
No.
I have 6-2. The denial passes.
I think there were 3.
3. My apologies.
So 5-3. Okay. All right.
Let me review it. I show approving the denial, Arguello, Braun, Hikas, Kaufman, Stuck, and Vidal.
Vidal is a no.
Vidal was a
I'm a no.
three to 5.
Okay, the motion to deny passes 5-3. All right. Thank you all for the discussion today. Any other items on the agenda, Vicki?
Very quickly, just a reminder that at your next meeting, your election has come full circle, and so your chair, vice chair, and secretary positions are up to be filled. I'm going to encourage all of you to talk amongst yourselves. If you're interested in maintaining the position, which obviously, Eric, if we could have everyone just keep it down till we finish our business, thank you.
Hey, folks, in the back. Hello. Can you move out of the room? Thank you.
My apologies. So Eric, you are currently the chair. Vince, you're the vice chair, and Karen, you're the secretary. I had to reach out to Andre to find out who had who, because thank you. Eric, you're almost here with for every meeting. So again, if it's something that you want to retain, talk to each other. But if you're interested in it, don't be afraid to speak up, because I'm sure your colleagues would like to give you that opportunity.
For sure. Yeah, no comment. Anything else from the commission today? Motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Vince made the motion, Karen seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, commission members, for staying. This was a long volunteer opportunity.
Card.
Thank you so much.